Hello, everyone, and welcome. It is Friday, and here at Inkarnate, we have this tradition of kicking off the weekend with a live stream. And today, we're starting a new series called Battlemap Architecture. We're going to be focusing on teaching our users some basic architectural principles that are really going to push your battle maps a little further. They're going to go a long way just learning these very basic principles. And what better place to start than with residential buildings, which makes sense. You're going to find residential buildings are probably one of the most common structures that you're going to find in battle maps. So it only makes sense for us to go ahead and make those residential buildings. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, as you can see right here, I've got a little battle map that I put together right here. If you do like this map, it is clonable, but this is a general idea of kind of the processes that we're going to be going through. I'll provide that link to the map in the chat. If you're going to be watching on YouTube, that will be provided in the video description. So let's just jump right into this. We're going to create a new map. You're going to use fantasy battle maps. Just choose the style. Again, depending on your machine, choose 3 or 4K. And hey, how's it going, Highway? And I'm going to choose just your basic landscape, Ultra 4K, so you can get nice and crisp. I am doing good. Thank you very much for asking. All right, we're going to let this load up. One of the first things that I do is, especially when I'm doing interiors, is I generally make the screen all black because when it comes to interiors, you're only seeing the interior, not the exterior. It doesn't mean that you can't paint on the BG layer and paint stuff for your ground floor. You can, but I'll just use black for right now. I'm also going to turn on my grid. I'm going to be using the grid as kind of a guide, and it's perfect for snapping things like the line tool and the shape tool, which we'll end up using. Now, one of the most basic principles understanding in architecture is knowing some basic shapes. And the kind of shapes you're going to see most common, especially in fantasy architecture, are squares, rectangles, circles, and then all kinds of polygon shapes. So you do have like octagons, pentagons, all these different types, hexagons, all these different types of polygon shapes. These are also helpful for making towers, making unique temple shapes. All of those things are super helpful. Now, when you are deciding which shapes to use when making your interiors or making your structures, it really depends on two things. And the most important one is its function. What is the function of the building? We know what the function is. The function is residential. So we know that part. The other thing that determines what the shape is and the materials is going to be the environment, right? So a residential building in a swamp is probably going to be a lot different than a residential building that's going to be in the snow or in the desert or underwater or up in the clouds, right? So those two things, the shape and the materials you use to make it are going to do those two things. It's going to be the environment, it's going to be the function. And we already know the function, that's residential. The question we have to ask is, what's the environment? Now, I'm going to start with basic house and probably just stick with your basic architecture with just rectangles and squares. We can throw some circles in. But what I want to do is I want to focus on putting the process that I go to put it together. And the first thing that you'll do once you've got the grid on in the black is that you're going to want to switch over to the shape tool and you're going to want to select a stamp that you want. Now remember, when you need to know what kind of wall to use to represent the outer walls, you need to figure out where this is, right? Because we're just doing a regular, let's just say, just your typical fantasy half timber house with daub and stuff like that. The house like that, the foundation is made of stone, and the foundation isn't underground, it's above the ground. And so you'll make this stone foundation in which the house will be put on top of. And so stone is a good place to start on the foundation or the first ground floor. Not everyone has to do that, by the way. A hut in a swamp, for instance, would not use stone for its ground floor or for any of its walls because it would sink in the dirt and the water, right? Instead, you would use poles instead to lift up some deck and then the house on top of that deck. So just remember, that's what I'm talking about when I say the environment plays a huge role in the materials that are going to go into the structure that you're creating. Stone for maybe a flat surface where it's easy to build, and then you can just put the foundation made of stone there. If it's in a swamp, it's going to use poles. If it's in a desert, it's going to have a flat top instead of a A-frame. So just kind of know that the environment plays a huge role. Well, I blabbed on about that forever. Let's go ahead and get started on that. Now, once you've picked the stroke, the stamp, you also want to choose the fill. What I normally choose is the clipping mask. Now, you don't have to. You could use textures itself, but the thing is that when I'm texturing, I like to blend and have multiple layers of textures. And so it's perfectly okay if you just want to have one texture for your floor, but me personally, I prefer the clipping mask. This allows you to put stuff like dirt, fallen leaves, stuff like that on the floor, so that way you can layer your stamps or your textures. That's very helpful. Now that I've chosen that, I can start putting the shape together. What I will do is choose snap to grid. And what I'll do is I'll make a basic shape of my choice. And what I want to choose is maybe a rectangle or a square. Let's just start with a basic square for now. Very simple shape, nothing complex. I'm going to snap it to the grid. And then after that, I'm just going to pick a texture that I want to be the ground. And I'm just going to choose, let's just say your basic ground. Let's choose this one. I kind of like this right here, this stone. Let's make some adjustments. You generally have to make adjustments to a texture. Let's also change the texture scale to make it smaller. So when it comes to scale, if you want to show that the room is really small, boost the texture up. If you wanted to show that the room was smaller, bring the texture down. That will kind of help with that. So from here, I'm just going to fill the whole FG layer with this. So if I go to FG and just click fill, and then I think also I might want to change the brightness. And when it comes to your floor texture and your wall, just have your floor texture be darker than whatever your wall stamp is. This will cause depth. That contrast between the light and the dark creates depth. Remember that trick. So let's fill it again and see where we're at. That's about right. It's probably a little too dark, but we'll stick with it for now. The other thing I like to do is boost up that shadow. So I'll bring the shadow up and then really get the intensity up. Now I have this shadows. Shadows also create depth and contrast, allowing things to pop up. Once I've added in that, then let's talk about like how is it that I decide how many rooms there are? How many did I decide the layout of the rooms? How do I decide access to the rooms? All of those things are important questions. So a single room is really simple, right? Let's just say this was a single room. You would just add a door and then maybe some windows, and then you would do the interior decorating, right? But let's say that you have two rooms. Well, that's not too difficult, right? You could just split the room into different parts. And when you're doing interior walls, what's really nice is to use a different stamp for the walls. So for instance, the outer walls, which is the frame of the whole building, that's the space that you're working within. Think of it as like the internal canvas in which you're working with. And then you also have the inner walls. And now what's really interesting is if you only have one floor, then you can just use wooden walls for your interior walls because it's not supporting a second floor. So only the main floor can have stone. Now, if you wanted to show that there was only a couple feet of stone foundation, and then you wanted to show that there was a wood on top of that, you would just copy and paste the whole thing, turn off the clip mask, and then switch the texture to wood. And then with the snap to grid on, now you have a wood texture and a stone texture. And one thing you can do is you want to be able to show that the stone texture is visible. Just bump up the scale a little bit like that. Okay. The other thing you can do is remember to show those shadows. All right, let's do this. Bring the intensity up. Let's make sure that we get a nice, easy shadow so you can really see the depth. Okay. So now you have a 2-foot, maybe 3-foot stone foundation part of the wall, and then it turns into wood after that. Okay. Now, what happens if I wanted to have 2 rooms inside of here instead of 1? 1 is really simple, right? You just need to create a door and the window. But if I wanted to show internal walls, how would I go about doing that? One of the first things that I'll do is I'll go select the stone texture that has the fill, and I want to make sure to bring the layer offset down to -5. This will make sure that the shadow of the stroke will also affect any stamps that I put next to the wall, because I've pushed that fill layer low enough to where I can put something in between the stroke and the floor. Let me give you an example. By the way, I'm not going to be doing any interior decorating in this stream. We're focusing purely on the architecture, but we can do what we can do is have a future series where we do interior decorating and how I go about doing that. So you can see that this stamp is above the fill, but it's below the stroke. This is perfect because now it will interact with the wall and it will interact with the shadows that are there. And just make sure that it just doesn't go like this, whatever stamp you put in there. Okay? Now, let's just do a real quick review on how to operate some of the features here. You can make a portal or a room just using this portal. And with the snap to grid on, you can select it. Now that's a bit too small, so I'll do double. And then I can select this shape and then do it again like this. And then there you go. What I normally do first, though, this is my suggestion, is create the entrance first. And then that way, when you copy it and then change the stroke and remove the fill, it'll already have that portal in there. But I just wanted to get you started on that. Now, when it comes to where to put the door, that depends on how many rooms you have and where the rooms are located. When it's just a single room like this, it doesn't matter where the door is, right? Because it's all one room. But if you have a second room, let's go ahead and create a second room here. And when I create my second room, here's the part that you can be creative. You could just have the room be here. Ooh, let's actually push it up one more. I want it to be above the stone part. Ooh, so let's push this one up above that. There we go. Okay. You could just make it very simple and just do a straight line across and then put a portal in there and there's your second room. Okay. But you can be creative and try different things. For instance, you could make an L shape. Oopsie, let's do the line instead. My mistake. Make sure that snap to grid is on. I'm going to line it up to where the door frame is and put it like this. And then there's your other room right there. So this main could be like a main living space, and this room right here could be like a bedroom. So be creative. You can also change shapes up. Don't just limit it to just these straight angles. Add some diagonals. Maybe I want to have it be like this. Go 4 across here, and then 4 up there. There's your different shape right there. Another shape that's different and unique. And then you can go ahead and just create your portal for those doors. So it's all about being creative and knowing when and where to put these shapes. And so be creative. Don't limit yourself to just 90 degrees all the time. When you limit yourself to 90 degrees in every single wall, it starts to become very symmetrical. And then it doesn't look unique and interesting. To make a good architectural structure, you want to have multiple angles, curves, changes in the design. Okay? Hey, Kilipenia, welcome. All right, so now that we've kind of touched some basics on there, let's make another structure that's going to be multiple rooms, and then we'll add a floor on top of that as well. So let's start over. Now you kind of understand those principles about one room. Let's switch over to a big room, a big structure. And what I do, as always, I just start with a square or a rectangle. And then from here, you can add another shape. Let's say that I want to give it kind of an L shape. Perfect. There we go. I got an L shape there. What happens if I also want to put, like, if there's going to be multiple floors, then, and to save space, I'll create what's called a stairwell tower. Okay. And then I could just select circle, snap to grid, and then I'll create a stairwell tower right there. There we go. And so now already we have some unique shapes already being built. And by the way, always my recommendation is if you make a circular staircase tower, make sure that you put it in the corner because the stairs fit perfectly into the corner. That's a big trick there. Let me just show you the stairs so you can see it since I'm talking about it. Now, if you don't see the circular staircase, don't worry about it. If you go over here and say expand all assets, you'll notice that it's in here. So don't get confused. It's in there. You'll just take one of these like this, and you'll bring the size down, make sure that it's a layer below, and then there it is, perfect, right there, just lined up, okay? Now, I'll go more into staircases in a bit, but let's focus on the outside shape, let's focus on the inner walls, and then we'll focus on these other pieces. So let's focus on that first. Now, when you put your rooms together, you should put your access together first. So that means put your front door in first because your front door is going to determine where the access points to the rest of the rooms are. So it's super important that after you've created the outer walls, you do want to put your door in. So we're going to decide a location where we want the door. And the way that I usually decide where to put the door depends on where exactly I want to take advantage of some of the negative space. So for instance, right here, notice that I have, let me go ahead and grab a color instead, and we'll switch that color over to here. Notice that I have some negative space right here. You see the square isn't completed. So when I say negative space, I mean not where there is stamp or group. Right here is a negative space. This is a great entrance area right here. And so that'll work perfect for putting my door in. So I'll go back over to shape, put that in, go and place it, and then drag it over 2 nodes like this. And then there is my entrance. It's a little long. We'll switch it over 1 more. Let's take a look at it. There we go. Perfect. Now that I have my entrance figured out, now I can figure out where the rest of the rooms are going to be. And when I put my rooms together, I start from the front entrance and then span out away from it. So think of it as if you were walking into the first room and then walking into the next room and then the next room and the next room. Okay, so let me show you how I go about doing that. One of the first things that I'll do is I'll walk in right here. And when you decide what the first room you walk in, there's a couple options. It's usually a living or a dining room or a reception, or it could be a vestibule, like a waiting area. And when you're deciding how many rooms to have and what kind of rooms to put in it, the way to decide that is how wealthy is the occupant of this residence. If it's just a house in a slum, there's probably just going to be 1 or 2 rooms, right? Because it's cheap tenant, very cheap structure. If your person is maybe a merchant or is the leader of a guild or a part of some kind of guild or a king or a queen or whatever it might be, a lord or a lady or someone with a little bit more money, then you can decide that, okay, they can afford to add more rooms, to afford the work that it takes to do this. So this is how I really decide how many rooms there are going to be and what rooms there are. So the more wealthier the occupant, the more elaborate and the more rooms there are. So that's a good place to start. For me, this is just like a regular, maybe a merchant who owns just a decent sized house. It's not massive. And the first room that we walk into, we're going to have that be maybe where the living room is, just like you see in a normal house when in real life, right? So we'll start with a living room first. And what I'll do is I'm going to stick with that wooden walls that I want to use. I like these. We're going to work this out. And what we'll do is we'll split this whole side of it right here. And this whole space right here is going to be living room, dining room. And so I'm going to put a fireplace. I'm going to put a kitchen space, and I'm going to put all those other things into this space right here. If I have enough room, I could move the kitchen over to this side, over to here, down here. We don't really know yet. What happens is that once you've put something together, you can kind of decide where to put it. You can move things around. Let's go ahead and change the brightness on this a little bit. Let's fix the shadow so it's a little darker. I want to show that there's depth, like there's a wall there. Perfect. There we go. Okay, first step. What I can also do, what's really, really cool is, let's say that you want to make a room more unique and interesting. You can create what's called half steps. A half step is basically just, if you're walking on the floor, there's just 2 or 3 steps that go up to another level. It's not a different floor, because a floor requires a staircase to go up to it. But if it's just 2 or 3 steps that lead up to just a slightly more elevated section of your floor, you can create like a little platform or what's called a half step in architecture. And what the half step does is it allows you to change up textures. It allows you to create some illusion of depth and to create some more unique shapes. And so what I will do is that I will first go ahead and choose a line shape for I want to represent to be the wall. And I'm going to go ahead and just click this like here. And I'm going to put it down. I want it to be below. This is where the kitchen is going to be, right up here, okay? And in fact, I'm going to change things up just a little bit, just to create a more unique shape. Remember that thing I talked about earlier where you can change it up? Let's do that. Let's change the shape to look like this. There we go. Now we have a little bit of a more of a unique shape here. That looks good. We'll keep that. And what's cool about this is that we can take this right here and make this look like it's going to be a step. So I'll bring the brightness down. Step 1. 2, I'm going to change the shadow work on the line to make it look like it's a step. And to do that, I'm going to want to change the object shadows, bring the vertical down like that. And then let's just bring the shadow blur down a little bit, bring the intensity down, and then bring the vertical offset just down just a little bit. And then what you do is the shadow is on the bottom part and it makes it look like it's a step going up. With this one, it looks like a wall because the shadow is set to 0, 0. Once I've done that, now with a half step, I can maybe use a different texture for that half step. Maybe that half step isn't made of stone, it's made of wood. So I can go in now, go into core, choose this, and I want to bring the brightness down to about the same brightness there. The wood looks a little big, so let's change the texture or change the scale a little bit. Choose FG, and then I just go in right here and just paint in like this. With the soft brush, be careful with those edges. All right, and now already you have a unique design already coming together. You have this entranceway, which will probably have a fireplace. It's going to have some couches. It's going to have some other elements. And then we'll put up here is going to be like a kitchen and a dining area. Okay. Perfect. We have the walls put together there. And what's really nice is that I can change the wall up. Something you might not know about portals is that you can change them. Let's say I don't want it to be centered right here. Let's say I want to move it this way a little bit. So that way there's more room on the left side of this room to put furniture, to put the fireplace and stuff like that. So that would be helpful to maybe move the door a little bit to the side. Okay, let's go ahead then and bring the brightness down on this a little bit. It's still a little too dark. And let's bring the saturation up. I want it to kind of match kind of the same color of that wood right there. There we go. And then I think the shadow is off a little bit. So let's fix that. We'll bring the verticality down a little bit more. There we go. Okay. And then what's really nice is to step away and check out the grid. If you turn the grid off real quick and just take a look at it. Here we go. And we're already getting the shape kind of together. We have the entranceway, we have the kitchen, and we want to create some kind of entrance that goes into the next area. So for right now, I will place a door here. Now, we don't have to keep the door permanently there. We can change it at any time, right? We can change this at any time. But for now, we're going to put it there, and it's probably subject to change, as most things are subject to change. Some other things that we might want to do is maybe add some more unique shapes to it. So as you're going along building this, you're going to notice that things are going to change. And that's good, because change is good. You just start with the basic shape, and then you pop and build out from there. So check this out. Now I'm going to change up this a little bit. I'm going to change this. And I'm going to go ahead and move this. All I did was just add some nodes. We'll put another node right there. There we go. And then now we have a nice, unique octagon kind of shape right here that kind of expands it out a little bit. And now I have more room. I've created some different angles. I've created a unique shape, and I've created more room for the fireplace and everything else. So you're starting to get the general idea. You start with the basic shapes, and then you can start popping things out a little bit, add more shapes, add nodes, push the wall out this way. This is really the kind of the trick to kind of getting the architecture a little bit more interesting. Okay? All right, exactly. It's just like adding a new addition to your house. And so this is super easy. You know, at first it seems like, oh, this is really complex. It's not. It's super easy. Once you understand the basics, it really comes together. I also note a mistake I made here. I'll put that angle up. There we go. Okay. So it's coming together. So far, I'm enjoying the shape. I think overall, it's looking good. We're going to walk in here. There's going to be a fireplace. Up here is going to be the kitchen space. They're going to walk into here. Okay. Now, before I add anything else in the other rooms, let's talk about how to add multiple rooms on a floor. Let's talk about a hallway, okay? So a hallway is something that gives access to multiple rooms without having to go through someone else's bedroom to get to your bedroom or get to the kitchen or get to the bathroom, right? That's kind of weird, right? If you have to go through someone else's room to get to your room. And so a hallway solves that issue. Okay. Now, because this has a second floor to it, we don't have to necessarily put a bedroom in the ground floor. If you have a second floor, it's always nice to put the living spaces, the eating spaces, the dining spaces, the cooking spaces. And if you have a floor, if you have a workshop of some kind, those go on the base floor, right? And that has the public access. But the upper floors are more private, right? That's because you have to go up another set of stairs to get upstairs. So if you have a second floor, that's where I recommend that you put your bedrooms. Again, your bottom floor, your ground floor is going to have your living, dining, kitchen, and if you want, you can put a bathroom or whatever you want. There's all these different options. We could, because this person has enough money, we could put a bathroom down on this floor, or we could put other things. It's up to you. There could be a storehouse down here. We could add a bonus room that maybe has a pool table, whatever you want. There's all these different things that we can go with. So be creative, right? So let's keep adding into the rooms, and we will create a small hallway and a series of rooms. These don't have to be bedrooms, but let's go and put it together. So when I'm making a hallway, I want to maybe mimic the shape of the adjacent wall. So you notice that I have this wall right here. It kind of makes sense if I have the hallway kind of mirror that a little bit. And so the way that I go about doing that, again, snap to grid, is I could say, okay, I want to put it here, go across here like this, and then go across here like this. And I could have it all end like this and just have one room like that, and there's a hallway. I could bring it up like this, push that in. I could bring it up even more if you want to go up with more space. A lot of different options that you can kind of go with here. If it seems off a little bit, we can always change the node a little bit. I'm noticing the space between these is off a little bit, so we can fix that. Right here. There we go. Just bring this down one node. Oopsie, let's turn off the snap to grid because we don't need that. There we go. Okay, there we go. All right, so that can be a separate room right there. Right there. Or you can just split it. Let's keep looking at our different ways that we can go about this. We could split the room like this and have a big room right here, another room right here, and a room right here. Okay, but you would have to go through this room right here to get into that other room, right? Let's do the hallway thing. Let's do that again. Let's push this together. Let's snap to grid. I hope this is finding this helpful when putting things together. Okay, let's go ahead and put that there. Oopsie. That's not what I want. My mistake. Let's see how. Oh, you know what? Let's add a curve in. Have I told anyone how to do a curve yet? Check this out. Click, hold, and then go in the direction you want, and then it will curve like this. And I forgot to mention, curves are super important, by the way. They make things so much more interesting, right? Notice that I already have some curves with this circular stairwell tower. Adding in some curve to your line is incredibly helpful. I don't think it's useful in this particular instance right here, but I think it does the part, and you get the general idea that the curves are really helpful. We can do that in a later one. I'm just going to copy and paste this one right here. That way I just have the exact same one. And then what I'll do is I'll end up just changing and editing this one to work because I'm having a hard time with the other one. And that happens sometimes. And it's okay. It's an easy fix. We're just going to cause everything to snap to grid here. Perfect. There we go. Okay. And now I kind of already have the shape kind of put together a little bit. So if it's off a little bit, you can always fix it. It's up to you. But there's different ways to go about it. I'm actually not satisfied with that shape either. Never happy. This is the way it is when you're making a map. Let me tell you something. Let's see here. Let me figure out how I want to go about this shape here. I think I'm going to go with... I think this should be fine. Let's go with this. Okay. All right, now you have that shape there. Let's fill this in with wood. And this is something that I want to suggest is that change the rotation of the wood grain and it will look more interesting. So if I go into the wood grain and switch it to 90 like this and then paint in right here, say that this is just a wooden floor in this room or rooms right here. And I've changed the grain, and that gives it a more unique look. Let's also add in a door. Now, I've kind of noticed that this door is awkward. Generally, when I create doors, I want the doors to be offset from each other so that the door handles, the doors don't hit each other. So this door is right here, and then if I put another door, let's say right here, you're going to have an architectural problem, right? If I put the door right here, it's in a corner, that doesn't work. And even if it was straight, it would hit this other door right here. So when you're putting down your doors, make sure that there's room, space in between these sections for the door to go through, right? So when I create these doors will not hit each other when I open them. Okay, so just a quick little trick there when you're putting things together. And I think I will make this 2 rooms actually. We'll put one room right here, and then we'll put another room right here. And then I can go in. That's awesome, Dan. Okay, let's go ahead and put this together here. Here we go, shape. Of course, I need to put a wall right there. And I'm going to go ahead and put a T in here. What about there? There we go. Okay. And so now we already have some interesting shapes kind of put together already. All right. Now, the other thing that you need to do is you need to create what's called the door threshold. Okay. You notice that right here, my textures they kind of just bleed into each other. Let me turn off the grid so you can see it. See these textures right here? They kind of bleed into each other. You need to create what's called the threshold. That's the part of the wooden frame of the door. And so the way that I go about do that is just use that darker wood floor texture or wood right here like this, and then just turn off the shadows for it. There you go. And then now you have, again, what's called the threshold. And just place these wherever your door is, and it serves 2 functions. One, it's going to remove, it's going to hide the 2 textures that didn't blend well together, and it does have a function. It's the threshold of the door. And you would do the same thing here, right? Even a stone floor, when it has a wooden door, it needs a wooden frame. That means the floor, that means the jamb, the frame, the threshold, and the cap on top. All of those things are probably going to be made of some kind of wood, right? And so you need to show those things. You don't have to add a door if you don't want to. Personally, I don't add doors unless they're locked, specifically locked, and then I'll add a door. But that's the only time I really add doors, generally. It's up to you, right? Okay, let's take a step back and just take a look at the design. Overall, I'm satisfied with the way that it looks. Things are coming together. We've got these shapes come together here. We've got this. Let's go ahead and quickly save it, and then let's look at our time. 33 minutes, cool. We got so much time. Let's keep going here. We're just going to call this residential. Sweet. I hope you guys are finding this useful, just kind of getting the general basics of putting things together. Like I said, just knowing some basic architectural principles can really make your battle maps go a long way. Okay, now let's go ahead and quickly add in some extra little details that I'm going to add with the walls, and that is adding caps, okay? So when I say a cap, I mean adding a cap to where there's a junction. So let me just show you real quick. Let me type in wall. Like for instance, this is a cap right here, okay? And what this represents is either a stone or a wooden pillar in which the frame of the walls is built upon. And what I do with this generally is I'll take, let's see here. There should be a stone, just a regular stone one. Let's just take a look. Here, let's see. Maybe it's up here. Let me just take a look. No, let's type in stone real quick. There we go. Let's see here. Where are you? There should be a stone cap, that specific kind. Though I do like this cap right here. This is a nice kind of design, so I think I will stick with that. One of the first things that I'll do is before placing the cap down, I'll switch the layer over to custom object shadow, and then I'll boost the brightness or boost the shadow blur and the intensity, and then it creates this hard shadow, and that will create this illusion of depth. And then I'll desaturate it because it's this reddish color. And then what I'll do is I'll place it, turn off snap to grid, and I'm going to place it wherever there are junctions or wherever sections intersect. So one in that corner makes sense. One in that corner. One in that corner. One right here. Oh, let's put one in this corner. You could even put them in here if you want to, though they can look a little odd. But you can put them there. But anywhere where there's technically a corner is a good place to put these. And you can even line them up to where they create these pillars. And what these, again, represent are the pillars that are holding up the thing. And one other thing you can do is line them up with the walls. So if there's one pillar right here, then maybe I should add another stone one right there. And then maybe another one that lines up right here with this one. So you're kind of getting the general idea. These little caps just add more details to the map, making it look more interesting and unique. And you'll do the same thing with the wooden walls, right? You just type in wall or wood. Oopsie. Notice that little error there. Wood. And then you'll notice that there are some wooden caps. These are perfect. Same thing before. Before you place them, go to Custom Object Shadow, bring the intensity up, and add a nice hard shadow to that so that it really looks like it's above. And then just place this wherever the intersections are. So one right here might look good. Here, here. You can even put them where the door frame is. That's fine. So if you want to put them by the door frame, wherever walls intersect with each other, you want to put them. So here and here is fine. Okay. Right, so you guys are getting the idea here. It's kind of coming together. Adding in these pieces is always a nice touch. Get the walls together. All right, so you guys are getting the idea. It's coming together. Let's throw in some more unique depth. Let's throw in some staircase stuff. Let's throw in staircases now. So first we'll put in the circular one. I'm just going to put this in. I want to show you guys how to do this. This is fun. So again, you want to make sure that the fill on the group that you have right there, the shape you have right there, make sure the fill is down at layer -5 so that way the staircase right here sticks there. If you want to, you could turn the shadow off and then just change it to luminosity so it keeps the same color, and then change the brightness. That's the first step right there, is putting in the stair. The next step is adding in the supporting column that holds the whole staircase up. And what I use is just a pillar for that. So if I go in here and just choose a pillar of my choice, I'm going to desaturate it. I'm going to place it right here. I'm also going to bring it up several layers above the staircase. And then I'm also going to change the shadow so that way there's a nice hard shadow there that kind of represents the shadow. Let's bring the intensity up. There we go. Perfect. Let me take a step back. All right, there's the supporting column. Now, what about, how do I decide which part is up and down, and then where do I put the cutoff to where the staircase is? How do I do all that stuff? Well, let me show you that. All right, so first, let's talk about which way is up and which way is down. Let's start with that. It's a good place to start, right? So this is going up right here. And you can tell that it's going up because you'll see that there is a shadow right in front of the riser. Okay, if you're not sure what the riser is, it's the step, it's the face of the step right here. Okay, that's called the riser. And usually there's a little bit of a drop shadow at the base of the riser so that it looks like there's a step there. So this is up, going that way, and this is going down. So now you know up and down. The next step is, how is it that I determine how to cut off the step? And so what I'll end up doing is just using a wooden pillar or a wooden wall or a stone wall. Oopsie, that's on layer -5. Let's put it down one. I'm going to put it right here like this. I'm going to try to center it a little bit with this thing as well. And one thing is it's a little small. So what we're going to do is we're going to boost the scale size up. And then to make it look like it's above, we're going to add a nice shadow to it. Add a nice hard shadow. So you'll see a recurring theme here. Putting in hard shadows is really helpful. And make the shadow big and just move it a little bit to the right. And then it will overhang. And then there is your staircase going up. Okay, so not complex. But we want to add in some more staircases in here to make it look more interesting, a more unique looking build. So what we'll end up doing is look up stair, and I'm going to use the same type of staircase that the ground texture is. So it's going to be this eastern texture right here. Let's go ahead and use this as my scale for how big the stairs are. Perfect. And I'm going to desaturate, bring the brightness down. There we go. And let's bring the contrast down a little bit. Okay. And now we have a step. Now we're just going to go to transform, and we're going to change the width. And then we're going to bring this down several layers. There you go. And now we have a step going up to here. Okay. And if you don't like that step because of the corner it is, that's fine. Maybe make the step over here instead. Maybe have this be the step. Wherever you want. Just adding in just a little bit of stairs here and there is a great way to just to add a little bit more depth to your build. So if I put a staircase just right there, then it looks like there's just a little bit of a higher level over here. And whenever I do that, if I add a little staircase, I'll take that texture that I used, I'll go to color, and I'll bring the brightness up just a hair, and then I'll fill it in. And now this section is a little bit higher because it's painted in a little bit brighter. Okay, so you guys are getting the idea, right? Already it's starting to come together. We have all this nice architectural elements kind of coming together. 8 random single steps. Absolutely. Oh, that's awesome. Okay. All right. Now that we've I think the downstairs layout looks good, we can now start throwing in the next elements that we're going to put on. Again, we're not doing interior decorating. We're going to instead focus on that another time. So let's throw in. Now, when it comes to your chimneys and windows are also part of architectural elements. So I'm going to include that in here. So let's type in fireplace. And the fireplace, to decide which one to use, depends on how wealthy you are, right? If it's a wealthy house, then put a very nice fireplace. If it's a medium income house, then don't worry about using a fancy one. Use a more medium one. Like right here, I'm using kind of a medium one here. That's fine. Just use that. So place that. Make sure it's below the stroke. After you've added the fireplace, then you want to add a chimney as well. So type in chimney. I like to use this one with the double right here, and I'll just desaturate it. And then I'll put it on top, and then you just go up, 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 up a couple layers. And then again, don't forget to add that custom shadow. Bring the intensity up. There we go. Okay. And now you have, we can even bring it down a little bit more this way. Okay. And now you have a little bit of a fireplace right there. And usually I'll put in a light source just right away. Just right away, I'll throw in a light source. So I'll throw in a nice little shadow here, a little light here, warm light, and then I'll add a really yellowish or kind of a orangish color to represent kind of the flame color. So big yellowish light and then a smaller orange light closer to the fireplace. And that gives it that nice warm reddish glow, right, from a fireplace. And then once I've established a light source there, now I can have all of my stamps that I'm doing my interior decorating can now cast shadows from that light source, unless you add a window in the kitchen or whatever. So just kind of remember that stuff. Now you also might want to put a fireplace in the kitchen as well. That's where the cooking is done, or the cooking can be done in here. It's up to you. You can copy and paste and just add in another fireplace if you want. You can put it on this side. Having two on one side might be structurally kind of weird, so you could always move it over to here and put a little fireplace right here. It's up to you on how you want to go about doing that. There's also stoves and stuff that's going into interior decorating, but the chimneys are generally, fireplaces are built in to the building. When it comes to stoves and stuff, those are usually installed or whatever. Nope, they do not automatically do that, but that would be cool, Ruin Brew. You should definitely request that because I like that idea. I think I'm not going to put a fireplace up there. We'll just say that the cooking, let's just say that there's probably going to be a stove and everything up there. So that's just all internal decorating, so I won't even bother with that. So let's start with that. Let's keep adding in just a couple more step stuff. One thing that we could do is we need to create the entrance to the building, right? So let's create the entrance to the building. Pretty easy stuff. I'm just going to use this kind of same kind of texture or a stamp that I used right here. And one real cool way of putting together some stairs for your entrance is to have the stair not just go straight up like this, but to have it bend and do different angles. So let's turn off the layer shadow. Let's bring the scale down on this, bring it to here. And then instead of having the stair go straight like this, have it run up against the wall like this. And so what this is also going to do is change up some of the shape a little bit, making it a little bit more different. So now I have a staircase going up this way and into the thing. So you can change up your entrances. And when it comes to entrances, the more expensive the house, the more wealthier the occupant, the more elaborate the entrances generally are. They have foyers and all this interesting garden, elaborate, drawing rooms and all this kind of stuff. We won't go into all that later. We're just going to stick with the basics for residential. And if you guys want, in another stream, we can make a mansion or something. And maybe that would kind of help you out with kind of the room development there. So let's kind of go with this. I think so far I'm kind of happy with where it's at. So we'll kind of leave it at that for there. And then we might want to work on another floor since we only have like 15 minutes left. And what I'll do is I'll resize the map. If I move it, then I'm going to change and the textures move a little bit. So I'm not going to do that. So I'll just resize it and then we'll talk about the second. We'll make a real quick second floor. So let me go ahead and just go over here to the grid. I'm going to show the grid. I'm going to resize. So we're going to go to resize map. And I'm just going to make it twice as big so that I can fit a second floor on there. I'm going to also make it snap to grid. There we go. Perfect. Okay. That should be big enough. Once you've made the ground floor, then it's a little bit easier to make the next floor because you already have the walls of the ground floor. But what happens if the upper floor is not the same shape as the ground floor? Check this out. I'll show you some cool stuff that we're going to do here. Yes, interiors are difficult, but we're definitely going to do a stream on how to do interior decorating because it's not as hard as you think. The interior decorating is just about knowing the function of the room. Right? Once you know what the function of the room is, it's easier to decorate, right? It's a bedroom, so it's probably going to need dressers. It's going to need clothes. It's going to need a closet. It's going to need those things. If it's a temple and a shrine, it's probably going to need candles. It's going to need benches. It's going to need stained glass windows, that kind of stuff. So when it comes to interior decorating, it's not complex. It's just what's the function of the room, and then you can decide what furniture and what decorations go in that room. But I don't want to go too much in depth in that. Let's just focus on this. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy and paste this room right here. So now I have this whole thing. Now, here's the thing. What happens if I don't want my upper floor to actually be the exact same shape? Here's the really cool thing that you can do here. Let's just take a line here and let's just take a section of it that I do want to have. So I'll go ahead and take a line right here. Let's go ahead and bring the layer up, bring the line size up. Perfect. Let's just say that just this section of the house is going to be the second floor, right? So how is it I go about doing that? This is not complex. First, you turn that grid on. You're going to make sure that it's snap to grid. So we'll go snap to grid. Now that it's snapped to grid, it should be easier to do. Let's do a couple things. Let's remove the portal here. Portal gone. Perfect. Let's also go to subtract, and let's subtract this. Oopsie, my mistake here. I don't think is it snapped on right? Let me double check here. Let me put it here. There we go. Let's try that. That looks fine. Okay. So now you have this floor. So now if I go ahead and take this and put it right on top like this, you'll notice that that shape, there it is, right on top. Okay. And then what I generally will end up doing is, let's just say that I want there to be a little roof piece right there covering that part. Pretty cool. Check this out. I just go over to roof. Perfect. Let's just choose a roof that I want. Doesn't really matter. Let's use this one. I kind of like this tile. Let's choose this one. Let's pick a texture that I want, or pick a stamp that I want to use for this. There we go. Let's do that one. Perfect. Let's line it up. And we're going to go to turn the shadows off. And we're going to transform this a little bit to change it up. So let's change the width to be a little bit shorter. Bring the height up. There we go. This looks about the right size. And then I'll just place this right against there like that. And I'm going to bring the brightness down so it looks like it's further down. So if I just go to color, bring the brightness down, there you go. And now when I place this on here like this, let's turn snap to grid off. When I place this on right here like this, there you go. There's your roof piece right on top of that. So doing the floor stuff, a little bit easier than you think. Okay, so all you have to do is just take what you want from the base floor, from the ground floor, and just remove what you want. And then that way it will also create this interesting shape. So now it's not just a straight single L shape with that those little diagonal lines there. It's not going to look like that entire shape. So I've got the bottom floor and the top floor or the upper floor. They're different shapes, and that makes it more unique and interesting, doesn't it? So from there, you probably want to copy and paste your stairwell. Okay. And then you can change up. You can change things up if you want. Like, let's say that you want the entire upper floor to be made of wood. So what I'll end up doing now is let's change this to a wood texture instead. So we'll have a wood texture. And then I'll end up taking, let's get that shadow on where I want the shadow. Let's start there. And then everything that we just did on the ground floor, we have to do again on this floor because we did change it up. Now you could cheat, of course, and just, use the shape of the ground floor. But I think that your buildings will be way more unique when you remove certain sections of it the further up you go, kind of making it more structurally sound as well. Because the higher up it is, the more structural integrity starts to weaken because of the weight. And so making the upper floor smaller the higher you go up kind of alleviates some of that stress and that tension on the ground floor. Okay. So now that we have that part set up, let's maybe make the staircase, let's make it stone. We'll keep it stone for now. We'll say the stairwell tower is mostly made of stone. But let's also take a texture, this right here. Oopsie, undo that. And we'll put our wood floor right here like this. And we're going to change it. And once we get to different rooms, we'll change up the texture. Let's turn the grid off. Now, when you have the next floor, you need to show that you came from downstairs, right? If you have this board over here, overhanging right here, it's going to make it look like, wait, how did you get up? But if you take this piece right here and then put it on the other side right here, what happens is it looks like you went up the stairs up onto this floor. Now, remember that little thing I talked about? You do need to show the threshold, right? So if we just copy and paste this and just turn that shadow off, there we go. And then put it right here. There's our threshold right there. Okay, and just make sure you turn the make sure that you turn those shadows off. There we go. Rotate. There we go. Okay, so it looks like you went upstairs. Oh, in fact, I need to fix the shadow on that. Let's go up like that. There we go. Okay, so pretty easy stuff. So now the step goes down. Let me go ahead and move this a little bit. There we go. Fix that. There we go. Excellent. Okay, now when you're making the hallway, here's the thing. With this one, there's going to be multiple rooms. So you're probably going to want to create a hallway that starts from where the stairwell starts, and then we'll create this hallway that will give access to all the rooms. So let's go ahead and do that step. So I'll take this right here, and I'm going to go ahead and make that hallway. Let's snap to grid here, and let's have the hallway be like this. Oopsie. Did that not show? Let's try that again. The shape must have not stuck. Let's go right here like this. Enter. There we go. Okay. And let's push it down a layer. There we go. Okay. So here's the hallway right here. And the hallway ends right here. And then it goes back down. Now that I have the hallway, I can start creating the separate rooms. So let's go ahead and do that. And what's always nice is just to line it up with already existing elements. So if that's where the roof piece is, I'll line that up and create another room right there like that. See? Oopsie, let's go ahead and turn the snap to grid off. We'll fix this a little bit. There we go. Right, so you're getting the general idea. A hallway, and now I have these two separate rooms. Once I've created the two separate rooms, now I need to create the access to get into the two rooms, right? So let's put the door away from the stairwell, because if I put the door right here, guess what? The door is going to open and it's going to hit someone in the face, and they're going to fall down the stairs and possibly break their neck, which would be a great plot element, but maybe not so much as an architectural design, right? So put the door away from the stairwell, and then we'll go ahead and put another door right here. Okay, and now you have two separate rooms right here, all right away. Now you could add more rooms. You could even add a room inside of these rooms. Like maybe you want to have a bathroom section. So if I wanted to add in a bathroom, then I would go in like this. And then here's a little bathroom section right here. Okay, so there's a little bathroom there. Now that I've established, let's go ahead and add that last door to go into the bathroom, which we'll put on this side. This way you have privacy when you're going to the bathroom, because if you were to put it on the other side, you would just walk and just see right into the bathroom. So putting the bathroom door here kind of helps with that. I also am thinking that I might want to create more room. So I can push this way a little bit more, create a little bit more room in there. And this is a big bathroom. Why don't we change the size a little bit? It's a little too big. It doesn't have to be massive. Let's just make it a pretty small size, actually. Because for the bathroom, we only need to add just a little bathroom toilet, maybe a little sink. And we're going to line it up a little bit. Okay, this should be enough room now. Let's go ahead and quickly add in a door. Let's put the door there. There we go. Access into the bathroom. Okay. Now you have that. Now, once you've established all that, now you can go in and change up the textures on everything, right? So let's go ahead and change it up. Let's have this wood facing, have the grain facing that way. Why don't we do a diagonal wood grain? That would really change up our 90-degree angles that we have here. So let's go to placement. Let's rotate it like this. And then let's fill in this section like this with this right here. Perfect. Now now the bathroom, let's not use wood. Let's use something different. What about some kind of tile for the bathroom? So let's go ahead and choose that. Let's see here. Let's go with this tile right here. That's a nice one. Let's also bring the brightness down. And then we also want to bring the scale down. There we go. Bring the tile scale down. I think that looks fine. And let's just fill that in right there. And then there's your tile for the bathroom. Perfect. Okay. And then, of course, we need to add in, well, take a guess. We need to add in your thresholds for your doors. So then we'll go ahead and place this down, copy, paste, another threshold for this door, another threshold for this door. There we go. Perfect. Now we have the thresholds. Perfect. We're getting a lot done here. So you're starting to see just how easy it is to put architecture together. It's just about understanding it. Really, the biggest thing is access. That, to me, that is the most important thing. You need to know that there needs to be access between where the main stairwell to get to, or the main front door, or wherever, all of those things. It's all about access, right? If you have to go through someone else's bedroom to get to yours, there's something wrong with your access. And that's the point of hallways. And the concept is the same. Let's say you have 20 rooms or 13 rooms on a floor. You need a hallway to connect all of those rooms. So it's not complex. It gets, as soon as you kind of understand those basic principles, it just gets a lot easier. And of course, just like before, we can add in all of these little half steps and stuff like we did before. So I can take a stair right here and then put this here. And let's say I just want to add a little staircase right here. So I'll go ahead and take the transform and change the width. Perfect. Bring the brightness down. There we go. And then you have a nice step here. And then whenever you do that, I generally change up the grain of the wood. So I'll change the grain of the wood to this, but now, and it's on the same level as this one. So then it makes sense that the wood grain would continue on into the next room. And it makes all the rooms look like they're separate rooms because the wood grain is diagonal in one room, it's going vertical in another, it's going horizontal in another. And that all breaks it up, all makes it more unique and interesting. And like before, what you need to do again is to go in and add in all of your wooden pillar stuff. And we can make these a little bit bigger, about the same shape as this. And again, put them on the corners and where the walls joint together. So not complex, pretty easy stuff. And we're going to make this a whole series. So if people have more questions about how I come up with designs and stuff, we're going to be covering all of that. Yes, the small things make a huge difference, doesn't it? It just pops out a little bit more, doesn't it? Adding in those wooden pieces just to make it pop out just a little bit more. All very important pieces, I think, and it just really adds to it. Let's go ahead and add these pieces. This goes across here, so let's put one right there like that. We go. Yeah, oh, let's put one across maybe right here as well. And then maybe we'll put some on the door frames too. Let's have the door frame be that way. Perfect. Let's do that. Okay, there we go. And you see that it starts to come together. Oh, thank you, by the way. I appreciate you saying that. I'm chicken indeed. That's very sweet. Let's go ahead and make that staircase just a little bit darker. Kind of noticing it should be a tad bit darker. Oh, wait a minute. I set it to luminosity. My mistake. Go back to normal. There we go. Perfect. My mistake there. Let's go ahead and change the brightness. Okay. There's only just one more thing to cover, and that's just windows. Let's just cover that real quick. When it comes to windows, it's all about the function of the room, right? If you have a storeroom, it doesn't make any sense to have a window. If you have a pantry to keep food fresh, doesn't make sense to have a window in there. Now, if you have a kitchen, a living room, a dining room, or a bedroom, natural lighting is going to play a huge role in making that space more dynamic. And so the way that I go about windows is deciding which rooms to put them in. Again, the rooms where you need to optimize your lighting. So if you're cooking, you probably don't want to rely on the fireplace light that's so far away from the kitchen space. You probably want to throw in a window that's going to bring in natural lighting so you can see. So if I just type in window into the catalog, type in window, and what window to use depends already on the materials that you're already using. So I have a lot of stone and wood here. It only makes sense to maybe use wooden windows. And so what I'll do is I'll maybe just center it in between these two pillars. You see how helpful throwing in these little square pillars is? Now I can use them as a reference to center this window right here. This will allow for natural lighting to come in right there. These rooms right here look like storerooms and maybe could be something else. So I don't think that a lot of natural lighting is necessary here. You could put another window in the front area. So you could put a window right here. Just bring the scale down and just place it right here. That could be another window that you could do. And let's have this window sill be inward. Okay, and by window sill, I mean this part right here. You see the top part of the window? It's bigger. That's called the window sill. The sill is usually on the inside of the house because then you can put stuff on the sill. Okay, that means like whatever you want, shelves, rocks, a lamp, whatever you want, right? So the window sill is facing inwards. So knowing where to put the windows at is helpful. One thing you wouldn't do is you probably wouldn't put a window next to the chimney, right? Because that's going to change the structural integrity of it to where you already have the chimney and then a window there. So you don't put them next to chimneys. You probably wouldn't put it in a storage room. You would put them in locations where lighting is important to the function of that room. So just remember that. So for instance, if this is a bedroom, it kind of makes sense to add in a window into the bedroom because you need natural lighting for that to show up. So I'm going to go ahead and put a window right there for this room. That'll work out great. In fact, I might even move it over to this corner because that stairwell tower there might be a shadow from the stairwell tower not bringing in the optimal amount of lighting. Or we can put it right here, which I think this actually looks best. We'll put a little window right there. Perfect. And if this is another bedroom, then maybe we'll put another window right here. It doesn't make sense to put the window here because at the bottom, that's where the chimney is, right? And in fact, it doesn't hurt to actually place the chimney right here, just so that you remember that it's there. And just so you know, most chimneys and most fireplaces are on the ground floor. And there's a good reason for that, because heat rises, right? And so if you have a fireplace, that heat's going to rise up into the second floor and heat up the occupants of that second floor. And it's also important because um, a fireplace, let's see here, what was I going to say? I forgot. Silly me. But I mean, it's generally where you find your fireplace. It's going to be on the ground floor. You generally won't find a fireplace on the second floor. It doesn't mean that they never happen. Castles have chimneys, have fireplaces on all kinds of floors. That's real. That totally happens. But just as a general rule of thumb that you can break, if you're making a residential building, generally put the fireplace on the ground floor so that fire, that warmth can go up. And yes, you can have a second fireplace using the same flue. Absolutely. Absolutely. You notice that this right here has two holes in the chimney. One can be for this chimney, this fireplace, and the other one can be up here. So if you wanted to, you could totally put a second fireplace on the second floor. I'm not saying that you can't or that you shouldn't. I'm just saying that when it comes to functionality, it makes sense to put them on the ground floor. This will allow it to heat up the other floors. It does not mean that you can't have them on your second floor. So thank you, Andorlian. Appreciate you mentioning that. The second flue, genius. Absolutely, 100%. Couldn't agree with you more there, my friend. Couldn't agree with you more. All right, so you guys get some of the basic principles here. All right, you start with the ground up, right? You start with the ground floor. You start with the basic shape, a square, a rectangle, a circle. From there, you'll pop out those walls. They're going to expand, create other sections to break up the symmetry of the square, of the rectangle. Once you've added in all of your wall sections, then you're going to want to create your entrance. And remember, the entrance is important because that is where your players are first going to enter into the building, and its proximity to the other access points to the other rooms. Okay? Once you've created the access to the main floor and the main rooms, then you're going to want to create the internal walls. And those walls can be different. They can be wood, they can be made of stone. If this was a castle, then maybe all the walls were made of stone, right? If it was a hut, maybe all the walls would just be made of wood. Okay, so remember what I said. Material is determined by the environment that you're in, right? Once you've kind of put together the internal walls, then you can start changing up the ground textures, create the access point to the second floor, start adding in the door frame, the thresholds, and the stairs to create different elevations, right? And so, and then from there, you'll go ahead and create your second floor. And remember, just copy and paste the stairwell from the ground floor. Copy the whole floor plan of the ground floor and then just bring it next to it and then just reduce, move certain sections, change up the shape a little bit, and that will create some unique architectural design to it, right? If it's all the same shape from top to bottom, it's going to look bland and boring. So change up that shape. Okay? And then again, just follow that same process that you went through before with the ground floor, adding in the wooden pillars, the stone pillars, add in the different floor textures. And remember, you can change the floor textures up. Some can be wood, some can be stone. Change those things up. So I think you guys get the basic principles of architecture here already, the access points and all the structural integrity stuff. So if you guys have suggestions for the next one, you should let me know. I was kind of thinking that we won't do another residential, like a mansion next. We should do something like maybe a shop, right? Because the shop is going to have the storefront and it will also have a residential with it as well. I'm not going to do cave because I'm going to stick on the architectural elements. A cave would technically be in the dungeon category, not necessarily a structure, but a tavern. Yes, a tavern. We can do a tavern. We could do a potion shop. We can do whatever we want. There's so many different options. And there actually was one other thing that I wanted to show you, by the way. And I want to show this because this is super important, is what happens if you want to show that there are multiple if there are multiple ways to go up and down to a floor. All you have to do is change that wooden pillar right here like this. And now you have an up and a down, okay? I just wanted to show this real quick because this is super important. So now you already have here, you have a staircase that goes up, oopsie, that goes up like that, and then another stair goes down. So if you're on this floor right here, this is the way up, this is the way down. That is how simple creating multiple ways to go up and down. So I forgot about that. That's super important because we only did a second floor or another floor, one extra floor. I didn't get to show this. This is super important. Now you just need to put one little wooden wall section, and now you have access downstairs and access upstairs to the next floor. Okay, super easy trick. All right, you guys, we've already gone over an hour and 10 minutes, so I don't want to take up any more time, but you guys get the general concepts, and if you have questions on your architecture, please reach out to me. I will help you with it. I'm on Discord and I'm always willing to help. So thank you so much for watching. We will probably do a tavern for our next architectural installment, Battlemap architectural installment, and I am very much looking forward to that. So thank you so much. Please stay safe and healthy, and merry map making. I'll see you later, everyone. Please take care, okay?